Okay, so it is March 24th, I think. It's a Tuesday. So let's go ahead and get started with what we're going to be doing this week. So we are going to start, I think this is a new genre for us. We've been going over informational texts, science fiction, other types of fiction, poetry. But now we're going to go over a type of nonfiction text called a persuasive essay. So one thing that I'm stressing a lot to my other grade levels is that when we're talking about persuasive essays, another word for them is argumentative essays. Okay? A lot of times we associate the word argument with like a disagreement or like people fighting and stuff like that, but really we're just trying to convince someone to agree with us, right? So a persuasive essay is a brief work of nonfiction in which the writer tries to convince readers to do something specific or to think a certain way about a situation or idea. So they may not necessarily be trying to get readers to physically go out and do something. They just might be trying to change their opinion about something. So let's take a look at our genre elements. Our author's purpose in a persuasive essay is, of course, to persuade, right? To convince or persuade readers, or to argue for or against an idea. So this is kind of interesting because it makes it clear that sometimes you might be trying to convince someone to go against something else. You're still persuading them, but it's kind of like in the negative way. So it's like, oh, I'm trying to convince you that Pizza Hut doesn't have the best pizza, instead of me trying to convince you that Little Caesars has the best pizza. Characteristics. So we do have a statement of the writer's claim. They definitely do say that, straight up. So that would be our controlling idea or thesis. And we're talking about the writer's claim. This is basically his opinion, okay? His opinion, or we can even say his stance, right? How he thinks about something. There are various types of supporting evidence, such as facts, examples, data, or anecdotes. Anecdotes are short stories. A counterclaim or opposing position that the author disproves by offering a counter argument. So what's going on here is that, for example, if I'm trying to convince you that Pizza Hut has the best pizza, I might say something like, some people might think that Little Caesars has the best pizza, but actually they're wrong because, so that would be me bringing up the counterclaim, and I'm disproving it by giving you why they're actually wrong. So it's really important that when we bring up a counterclaim in a persuasive text that we definitely disprove it. Otherwise, we're just kind of offering evidence that goes against what we're trying to prove, right? So the language shows the writer's awareness of his or her reader or audience. So if I'm trying to convince, a very conservative audience about something, I'm going to be using more conservative language, right? If I'm trying to convince, a younger audience about something, then maybe I can make things a little bit more informal, right? I can sound more conversational to be more interesting, right? More engaging with my reader. So let's go ahead and take a look at the types of supporting evidence. So a claim is a writer's position, his stance, his opinion, the idea that he or she wants readers to accept. In effective persuasion, the writer tailors the argument to the audience. Okay, so when we're talking about tailoring something, we are, how can I say this, individualizing. We are making it for a specific audience. Made for a specific audience. Okay, so we're talking about tailor. We think about, a person who sews, right? Makes adjustments to garments, to clothes, so it can fit a specific person. So when we're talking about tailoring the argument, we want it to fit a specific audience. So anyhow, the writer tailors the argument to the audience or readers he or she is trying to convince. The writer chooses reasons and varied evidence. So multiple types. Okay, we don't want just a single type of evidence because that doesn't tend to be as convincing. That will appeal to the audience's sense of logic, their emotions, or to both. So usually the best arguments, the best persuasion is done by appealing not just to what you know makes sense, but it also makes you feel a certain way, okay? And this is something that we're going to be talking more about next year when we're talking about ethos, pathos, and logos. And I'll just briefly introduce that actually. So when we're talking about ethos, we're talking about your sense of trust about something else, okay? So usually ethos is experts' dependability. If I say that you should trust what I'm saying because I have been teaching for almost 15 years, I'm appealing to your sense of ethos, okay? Pathos is emotions. Okay, so when we're talking about appealing to their sense of emotions, what we're really talking about is pathos. And logos is logic. What you know is right or what you know makes sense, okay? So here are the multiple types of evidence, and we have examples of each one. So for a fact, of course, we have information including dates and numerical data that can be proved true. In 1969, American astronauts landed on the moon. Approximately 600 million people watched on TV. This is something that I can prove. Expert opinions, that would be my ethos, right? Information from those who have special knowledge of a subject. According to Carl Sagan, the nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. Why should we believe this person? Because he's a super famous astrophysicist. I don't even know if that's a real thing. Astronomer. Okay, examples, specific instances of a general idea. So for instance, of course, it's just another term for example, blankets used by marathon runners were invented for the space program. Personal observations, explanations from the writer's experience or knowledge. Watching the meteor shower, I realized how much we can learn from exploring the cosmos. So notice that now we're including I, right? And anecdotes, brief stories that illustrate a situation. As Opportunity completed 26 miles on Mars, NASA scientists celebrated with their own marathon. Okay, so just a little brief story about what happened. Okay. So I'd like for you guys to go to the bottom of page 209. You are going to be filling out this chart right here. Actually, you don't even need to fill it out here. You can just put 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the type of evidence that it is, okay? So here it says work with a partner. Obviously, you're not because we are socially distancing, right? To label the type of evidence represented by each item. Then choose the one that best supports the claim. Earth still has many unknown wonders deserving of exploration. So not only are we labeling the type of evidence that it is, using this chart up here, but we are also offering our opinion about which one best supports this claim that Earth still has many unknown wonders deserving of exploration. So you're going to choose either 1, 2, 3, or 4 as being the most effective to support the claim. So what we're going to be doing now, we're going to go on and we're going to be reading this persuasive text. I do want to talk about a little bit of the author here on page 210. So Amitai Etzioni is a university professor at George Washington University. He was previously a professor at Harvard Business School and Columbia University. So we should trust what this dude is saying because he has worked with some pretty impressive universities, right? Etzioni was also senior advisor to the White House under President Jimmy Carter. Woo. His work appears frequently in newspapers such as New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal. I think this is really tapping into expert testimony or our ethos, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to post images of this text, and I'm actually going to read it aloud to you. So when you're done, you are going to be taking the selection test and going on to the insight questions.